All right, welcome back to Client Builder Playbook. I'm Brian Toronto, and of course, the author and creator of Client Builder is Larry Lewis. And the last episode, remember, we were talking about the focusing illusion, which I think is really important for people to understand because this is very powerful. So explain the focusing illusion.
So our last episode, we were talking about this concept that people make buying decisions emotionally. They only justify them rationally. I had been hearing that my whole career, since probably the first time I went through spin selling training back in, gosh, I'm going to date myself, but believe it or not, it was back in like the early 80s. And I listened to it, but to me, I wanted to know if there was any science there. And it was Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman wrote the book Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. He won the Nobel Prize for something called prospect theory. Other people refer to it as loss aversion theory. Now, prior to Kahneman, the conventional wisdom that people make buying decisions rationally. Kahneman disproved it, okay? What he proved is that people make buying decisions emotionally, and that negative emotions, the concept of pain, is 2 to 3 times more likely to cause people to take action than seeking gain. Now, he won the Nobel Prize for that. But when questioned in an interview, he said, what was the most important discovery in terms of marketing and sales based on the research that you did? And everybody expected he would have said, well, it's prospect theory, loss aversion theory, the thing that he won the Nobel Prize for. That's not what he said in the interview. He referred to something called the focusing illusion. And the focusing illusion is nothing more than the more somebody talks and thinks about something, the more important it becomes in their mind. Okay. Now, what Neil Rackham had stumbled on when he did his research that led to the spin selling questioning method was that, unbeknownst to him, he had found the means to stimulate the focusing illusion. And so what Kahneman said is that the more you get somebody to talk about a particular concept, the more important that particular concept becomes. Let me give you an example.
So you're saying the more they talk about it, or the more you can get them to talk about it, there's going to be this natural rise in emotion and pain as they talk about it more.
It becomes an issue, okay? I'll give you an example, and it's something that just happened to me. This morning, you saw my new key fob.
Yep.
And I just purchased a Toyota Land Cruiser, right? Saturday. You asked me, I didn't know you were looking for a new car, and I wasn't.
Right, because you just gotten that Jeep.
I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee, which I loved. Well, interestingly enough, 3 months ago, Kelly and I went camping, and I used my Jeep Grand Cherokee to tow my camper. On the way home from the camping, I noticed that the car was missing. It wasn't running properly, okay? So I thought I better take it in, have them look at it. I take it into the dealership, and the dealership said, well, the good news is it's still within warranty. The bad news is you need a camshaft assembly. That didn't sound good to me. That's an important part of the engine.
That doesn't sound good to me.
No.
Right.
And I'm like,
sounds like a big piece.
God. I said, well, that sucks. I said, how long is it going to take to get fixed? He says, well, the problem is the parts are on back order. We don't know when they're going to be in. I says, well, what's your best guess? And they told me that the parts were not going to be in until maybe the end of September. I'm like, holy crap. Well, can I drive the car in the meantime? He says, no, we're afraid that if you drive the car, it's going to do more damage. And I'm like, well, So what do I do? Well, you need to leave the car here, but we can get you a loaner. Okay. So that was the event. Okay. I've got a car that has a serious engine problem. Now, I go home and tell Kelly. She didn't know that she was triggering the focus illusion or that she was taking me down the diagnostic drill.
Naturally, she
naturally, but Kelly's concerned,
right?
Right?
Yes.
So I go home and she said, "What's the verdict on your car?" I said, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "It needs a new camshaft assembly." She says, "Oh, well, when's it going to be fixed?" I said, "Yeah, that's the worst part. I'm driving a loaner out there." I said, "That part might not come in for 4 months." Okay. Now, left alone, I might not have gone out and bought a new car. But here's what happens. She said to me, 4 months? Are we going to be able to tow the camper with the loaner?
Oh, right.
No.
Yes.
She said, "In fact, honey, we can't even load the kayaks on the roof of the car because I'm not allowed to put a roof rack or a kayak rack on top of this loaner." She goes, "Well, that sucks." And she just starts asking questions about, "Well, did you ask them why it's going to take so long?" And I said, "Yeah, they're still using COVID as the excuse that the supply chain has never recovered from COVID." And the more I talked about this, the more angry, the more frustrated I got. And she says, "Well, but what about the weekend that we're going to do up in Erie? That's supposed to be in July." I said, "Well, we're not going to be able to camp. I guess we're going to have to go get a bed and breakfast up there." Well, that sucks. I know. And so we have a 20-minute conversation.
Where
Okay.
out of her own curiosity,
And
she's getting you worked up.
And all I'm doing is talking about it.
Right.
But the more I talk about it, the more frustrated, the more angry I get, to the point where when I'm done with that, I'm saying, like, that's bullshit. I said, "I'm going to go take a look at a new car." I had no desire to purchase a new car one day prior to that.
Right.
Okay. But her just being curious, and keep in mind, we talked the last time about these situation questions. I laid out the situation.
Yep.
But what was the problem? The problem was that I wasn't going to have a car all summer long, which meant I can't pull the camper. I can't load the kayaks.
And these are all impact problems, impact issues, right?
So then we get into the impact. Well, that means we can't go on that camping trip up in Erie. Oh, I mean, Brian, we live in Western Pennsylvania. There's 4 or 5 months out of the year when we can kayak.
Right.
That's my favorite thing to do.
Yes.
And now I can't transport those kayaks to where we want to go. So now it's the impact. And the more I talk about that, the more frustrated I get. And I say to myself, what if I just go out and buy another car? So what do you think happens 30 minutes after we wrap up that conversation? I'm sitting on the computer and I'm doing a search for midsize SUVs with towing capacity over 5,000 pounds, because I got to be able to tow the camper. And, let's see if they have any hybrid models out there, because I've thought that the next time I get a car, I want to replace my gas-powered car with a hybrid. And before you know it, I discover that Toyota's come out with the Land Cruiser in 2024 that has a 6,000-mile towing capacity and a hybrid.
And there would have been no way you would have ever considered purchasing a new vehicle, even if that salesperson that you were working with, right, or service department said, you ought to just purchase a new vehicle. You would have never done that because they didn't have you focus on it. Kelly's curiosity about the situation is what built this emotional fire within you to get so angry to eventually take action. And I think this is so important that people connect the dots here, because one of the things that I always say to our advisors, your job is not to get the sale when you go in. Your job is to be extremely curious
Absolutely.
about their situation,
Yeah.
because your job is to disqualify,
Right.
not qualify.
Right.
To disqualify. You disqualify by being unbelievably curious. Now, for Kelly, she was just being your spouse.
She's just being caring.
That's
Right?
it. There you go.
Yes.
That's it. You nailed it.
Yes.
And that's what more advisors need to do. You need to stop looking at these prospects as a way to make money,
Right.
and a way for you to just care about them and their situation.
Do they have a problem compelling enough for them to seek your help? Now, all we have to do is get them to talk about those problems. Now, everybody, as they near retirement, starts to have concerns. It's so funny, Brian. I'm 68 years old now, still working because I love this. But, the guys that I play pickleball with 3 to 4 times a week, it seems like when you meet somebody new within this circle of people at my pickleball club, what comes up is always the same topic. Are you still working?
Mm.
When are you planning to retire? What's holding you back? I mean, this is what's on the mind of people in their 60s, okay? Now, when you ask that question, what's holding you back? I'm not sure I have enough money, okay? I don't want to run out. Those are all the common complaints that we're trying to bring to the surface, either through the advance agreement or through the 30-second qualifier, third-party stories that we've touched on, and then turn those common concerns into what I call pain. It's the focusing illusion that turns a problem into pain. And all we have to be is be curious. Now, we've given you some tools to make it more effective. And before we're done today, I think we should probably role play that. But the thing that I find so fascinating is that what would the traditional salesperson have done if I found out, or if they found out, that I was going to be without a tow vehicle for the whole summer? They would have heard that problem. They would have jumped in and says, well, we can certainly sell you a new car. Let me show you what we have on the lot. Did you know we have hybrids? And I would have immediately gotten defensive. I'm thinking, what's that going to cost me? Whoa, this guy's coming on strong. He's trying to sell me. Before we get into that type of a conversation, you need to ask those questions. And that's what Kelly inadvertently did. She asked a bunch of questions that took this problem of we're not going to be able to go camping this summer. This problem of we have no way to transport our kayaks. And she got me to talk about it. And the more I talked about it, the bigger the problem became, the bigger it grew, to the point where by the end of that 20 minutes, I'm angry. Now, what's anger? An emotion.
Right.
Okay. What's frustration? An emotion.
Correct.
Okay. And now I'm saying to myself, maybe I should go buy a new car. Now, at this point, I'm seeking the solution. Okay. So I do a little homework. I pick up the phone and find out when the local Toyota dealership's open and do they have any Land Cruisers on the lot. It was a matter of 3 days from that conversation before I put a deposit on a new Land Cruiser. And what she didn't realize is that she was just doing what any attentive spouse would do. She was just asking questions. And by the way, I mean, she was frustrated too, because she was looking forward to some of these. She likes to kayak with me. She was looking forward to going up to Erie on this camping trip. We go up every year. We stay at some of the wineries up there. It's fun. Okay. And those questions just caused that campfire of a problem to burst into a bonfire of pain. And now I'm out looking at new cars.
We have a little like blurb in our office where it says my job, and I encourage the advisors to read this every time they go into a meeting, to remind themselves of the state of mind that they need to put themselves in. Because I think if you put yourself in the right state of mind.
What's the blurb say?
It basically just says, my job is not to sell. My job is to be highly curious about their situation.
That's
my
awesome.
job is to disqualify, not qualify.
Yeah.
And the reason I want them reading that every time they go do a meeting, every day they have meetings, is because I believe that if you put yourself in the right state of mind, the questions will come naturally, right? If you put yourself in that state of mind of curiosity, those right questions will come up.
Do you remember the conversation that we had? It's been almost 10 years, maybe even more than that now. One of the shortest sales calls of my life, when you called
When
me
I called
up.
you in so much pain?
Yes.
Yes, because I didn't know where I stood with any prospect after a meeting. I felt lost because every meeting would take on a different process of its own, because I didn't have a process.
Right.
I did not have a process. And when you look at, when we went back and we looked at the numbers,
Yeah.
and when I started working with you, it was like a hockey stick of how much our production went up. And that was just me still producing at that point in time.
So you reached out to me.
Yep.
Because you'd gotten a copy of my book from a colleague of mine. And do you recall what the first question I asked you was?
I don't.
It was, Brian, it's a pleasure talking to you. What prompted this call?
Yeah.
And that's where you told me what you just told me.
Yeah.
That
I threw up all over you.
I feel so. You gave me a lot of common complaints. Now,
I think you even tried to go into your process, but I had so much pain at that point. I was just ready to buy. And you did what every good salesperson should do. You shut up and you asked for the sale.
Well, I just started to listen is what I did.
Well, that's what I mean. You shut up and you knew because of your experience, you didn't need to sell me. There was so much pain there.
Yeah. And you eventually said to me, can you help me?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's the end goal of a good diagnosis.
Yes.
Is to get this person to become so acutely aware that these problems are hurting them to where they say, can you help me? And what I did is, when you laid that out, I didn't jump to say, well, let me tell you about my program and how I can help. I said, how long has it been an issue for you, Brian?
Right.
And you started to tell me that, your number hadn't changed. Your the total premium that you sold hadn't changed in 3 years.
Correct.
And I said, what changes have you attempted to make to raise that number? And you started telling me about all the marketing that you had done, and that you were growing weary of the fact that you were spending more and more on marketing, but yet the premium number wasn't going up. So all that was doing is undermining your profitability. And then I started asking, well, what have you tried? And you talked to me about you had sought out a business coach. And I said, how's that worked out? And as I'm asking you these questions, the focusing illusion starts to take this campfire of a problem and it grows it into a bonfire of pain. And all I was doing was being curious. Now, we'll go through what those questions are. In fact, I think that they're spelled out on what page of the book
69.
Is it?
Well, no,
that's the advanced agreement.
Advanced agreement. But, by the way, if you haven't gotten a copy of this book yet, you've got to go do it. I've always told you, this belongs on the New York Times bestseller list. And, this book changed not only my life, but the lives of so many advisors across the country.
Yeah, we've worked with hundreds of them by now.
Hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And when I meet these advisors that have worked directly with you, one, I've become a celebrity because you put me in your training academy, which, by the way, if you haven't done that yet, you can also enroll in the university, Client Builder University. It's $25 a month. I mean, that's $300 a year. If you can't invest $300 a year in your career, I nothing I can do to help you. But this gave me the knowledge and the process for myself to feel back in control. Because you're right. All these FMOs out there, they can tell you to market and market and market. And what's the point of you having all these people coming in your conference room, sitting down with you, if you suck in the conference room?
Right.
You're not plugging up any holes. And how many guys out there today, men and women, are going through their sales the day without any process whatsoever?
Yeah. I mean, the marketing will give you the opportunities, but they're not going to enable you to close them.
It's not going to maximize it.
And you know, I hate to say it, but so many advisors out there, they really are just
Winging it.
they're winging it,
Yes.
and they're getting business out of sheer luck because the person that comes to them has already put themselves in such a high degree of pain.
They're getting the low-hanging fruit.
They're getting the low-hanging fruit.
They're getting the low-hanging fruit. They're not able to move. That person that's on the fence, though, is where everything changes.
Yeah.
That's where your number goes from, 5 million to $50 million a year, or from 50 million to 150 million.
Well, this guy that sold me the Land Cruiser, he didn't have to sell me.
Because you already had sold yourself.
I had already been sold. I mean, Kelly should get the commission on that.
Right.
I mean, but
again, if he had tried, so there is a point when, let's say that you are, curious about individual situation. You're getting them to focus on this problem. You can see the pain and the emotion arising during the meeting. There is a point where you can be overselling.
Yeah.
Right.
So
you got to know when to back off.
Yeah. So the last question in this questioning strategy, which we call the diagnostic drill, was something that I put in there simply to know whether it was time to stop. Because I have gone too far. I've taken, we call it taking somebody to therapy. Okay.
Yeah.
And as a sales trainer for the last 30 years, I typically sell small business people. Well, if you find so much pain that a small business owner starts to cry in your office, that's going too far. Okay. Now they feel humiliated. Okay. So I needed a way to check my progress. And so
kind of take the temperature, you mean, of like where they're at?
I would say, Brian, you've told me about pain.
Yep.
Can I ask you a question? How important are these issues for you? And then I'm looking to see your response as well as what you look like, your body language when you give it. It's very important because you'd be surprised. One man's pain is another man's annoyance.
Right.
I've had clients that they have so much pain, but they've essentially given up. And so they're not trying to fix it anymore. They're just trying to escape.
Oh,
okay?
That's a really great thing to bring up because I've had that happen where I got so good at building that pain. But then I was realizing that when I would say something along the lines of, how important are these issues to you? And what I mean by that is, are you willing to make a change to solve some of these? And some people, even after, will not.
They'll say, well, what difference is it going to make now?
Right.
It's too late.
It's too late.
Yes. They should have met you 5-6 years ago.
Correct.
Okay. But at this point in time, the solutions you have, they can't take advantage of. Now, after I ask, are these problems important to you? My next question is, are they compelling enough to you to where you want to make some changes? Okay. And if I get them, if at that point they say, not really, I'll say, I didn't think so. And now I know I have to bring up some additional pain points.
What a great pivot question. I didn't think so.
Yeah, because I don't want to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
what does that do? I mean, it almost gives you like space again.
So I don't ever want to find myself in a situation where I'm trying to convince my prospect that they should be worried about these problems. Because you really can't convince anybody of anything. The more I try and convince somebody, the more it creates something called reactance. And that's another important principle of psychology. When you try and force someone to do something, even when they know it's the right thing to do, they don't want to be pushed. So when you push somebody, they will instinctively push back. Okay? So if somebody has told me, they're not a big deal, I'd say, I didn't think so. Now I've got
a small takeaway to a certain degree.
It's a takeaway.
It's a takeaway.
It's a takeaway. That's why at the start of a sales call we set the advance agreement, so that's one of our ground rules. Whereas if we get the sense that we can't help them or that these problems aren't compelling enough for them to want to change, we're going to let them know that we're not a good fit, and we ask them if they'll do the same thing for us. In fact,
could we?
Yes.
Could we go through?
That was one of the comments that we got is, what does an
Well,
advance agreement sound like?
because the advanced agreement, one of the best advanced agreements is on page 69 here. And I mean, we don't have to go through the one that's in the book, but we should give an idea. And this
Well,
is,
let me do
yeah,
what I would do if I were opening up a sales
yeah,
call.
let's
Okay,
do
so
that. But
Brian,
again, again, if you have the book, the advanced agreement is written out right in here in the book. The whole script is right here for you to use. And I just took that script when I first started, and I just made it mine for the industry that we're in, because Client Builder was built to sell in any industry.
it was.
That's the cool thing about it, is that once you understand these fundamental concepts, you want to start another business, like building a studio,
Yeah.
and you want to rent your studio out. You got to know how to do this advanced agreement. So let's go through it, because it is powerful.
Yeah, and just so that our listeners know, I mean, that book, Client Builder Selling, that's the generic version of the program. But the Client Builder Academy that you alluded to earlier, that's something that you and I tailored
Correct.
specifically for the financial services industry.
Yes.
So let me play financial advisor. You play a prospect.
Okay.
And
Got it.
you're coming into my office for the very first time.
And maybe I'm coming in from a seminar.
Let's go with that.
Let's do that. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Brian, thanks for coming in today. It's nice to see you again.
Good to see you, Larry.
So, as I recall, you came to our seminar last week. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
My wife and I were there.
What'd you think of it?
It was good. It had brought up a lot of things that I had been thinking about for a while, and I'm not sure if I'm doing some of those things.
Okay. Well, that's what I want to explore with you here today. So, I've set aside an hour for this meeting. Is that what you have on your calendar? Does that work for you?
Yeah, I've got about 45 minutes because I do have to get to my doctor's appointment. But
Okay.
but we should be all right as long as
Well,
I'm out of here by 3 o'clock.
that's good to know. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. So, what was it that you heard at the seminar, or what was it that was on your mind that led you to attend the seminar
Yeah.
that we should talk about here today?
Well, I've been wanting to retire,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not really sure if I've got the right plan in place to be able to retire.
Okay.
I've got a 401k at work, but I don't know if it's going to be enough money. And I've got an advisor I've worked with for the last 25 years. Great guy.
Okay.
He's really helped me out a lot.
Okay.
Feel very comfortable with him, but I'm not sure if he does exactly what you guys do. So
Okay.
I'm trying to get some other opinions on whether or not, I can retire.
Okay. So one of the things we have to take a look at is whether you can afford to retire now. Do you have enough in the way of a nest egg set aside to where you can comfortably retire? Are there any other concerns that we should talk about here today?
I guess, for me, one of the things that you had brought up is, about making sure that you're protected if you have a health event.
Okay.
And that's never been discussed with us. And
Okay.
I'm reaching that point where I got to get on Medicare. And so there's a lot of moving parts that I need to resolve.
I think I heard you mention the fact that you didn't feel like you had a true retirement plan.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
My advisor, he's a good guy. He's got me great returns over the last, 20 years. But, he keeps telling me I've got a plan, and he keeps telling me I'm going to be all right. But I haven't, there's nothing written out. He just tells me I'm okay.
Okay. So a lot of the people that we work with at this stage of their work life, they're nearing the finish line, they're nearing retirement, and they want to see a plan that A, tells them whether they can afford to retire, assures them that they're going to have enough money to live out the retirement that they hope to live out, the bucket list and the dreams that they have for how their lifestyle is going to look in retirement. They want to make sure they're not going to run out of money.
Mm.
And along the way, they want to make sure they're not paying Uncle Sam too much in taxes. And so those are the concerns that are typically answered by a retirement plan. Do you share a lot of those concerns?
Yeah, every single one of them.
Okay, good. That's what I want to get into further with you today. I want to see if, in fact, the kind of work we do here at Secure Money Advisors is the kind of help that you need. If in the course of our conversation today, I get the sense that I can't help you or that what we do is not a good fit, I'm going to be straightforward with you. I'm going to let you know. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you do the same for me?
Yeah, you want me to tell you no?
Yeah, if it's not a good fit.
Okay, yeah, I got no problem telling you no.
Okay, good. All right. So let's talk about the first issue. And now we're going to get to the diagnosis step.
Yes.
But what I've just done there is I've just established the advance agreement. Now, I did that for 3 reasons. Okay, I want to know how much time you have allocated. You said that you could give me an hour, but you'd really rather be done in 45 minutes. That tells me a little bit about your personality,
Yes.
first of all.
Yes.
And it tells me that I don't want to waste a lot of time on small talk.
Correct.
We need to write into your issues.
But it also tells me as the prospect that you're not going to waste my time.
Yeah, exactly. Now, sometimes you'll have Chatty Cathy on the call
Yeah.
that, wants to spend the first 30 minutes telling you about her grandchildren.
Right.
We can use that time parameter as the means to rein that person in because we only have an hour, or in this case, 45 minutes to cover what we need to cover. But the most important thing I got in that advance agreement was I got a list of concerns, okay? Concerns that you're wrestling with right now. 1, you don't feel like you have a plan. You're concerned that you don't have enough money to retire. You're concerned that you might run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
You're concerned that you might wind up paying too much in taxes.
And by the way, you got that from me by saying the majority of the people that we meet with typically will tell us this, 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 and this. And I just agreed to those,
right?
Which now became my pain point. I didn't volunteer them up. You volunteered them, and I just agreed. And that gave you more jumping off points than I just didn't feel like I had a plan.
What I did by putting it in the form of a third-party story is I made it safe for you to admit that you have those problems. Because let's face it, you and I are strangers at the start of this meeting, right? Or maybe you saw me for an hour on stage at a seminar. But if I were to come up to you and say, so Brian, tell me what kind of problems you have related to your retirement.
I really don't have many. I mean, I'm just concerned I don't have a plan.
Nobody wants to say they have a problem.
Right.
It's kind of that perfunctory, how you doing, Brian? Good. Well, your life might be a mess.
Right, but you're
not going to offer that up to somebody you just met, right? So by saying, typically speaking, when I meet with people that are your age who are nearing retirement, they can see the finish line. These are the concerns they have. And then the magic word was, do you share any of those concerns? Right. And you felt like, wow, okay, I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
He works with people just like me.
Right.
It's safe to admit.
Yes.
Okay. And then, of course, I position the no. And I position the no by saying to you, if I don't think I can help, or if I don't think that what we do here is what you need, I'm going to tell you that. I did that for a couple of reasons. One, I'm trying to lower your guard. I'm trying to lower reactance. Every prospect comes into a meeting with the salesperson with their guard up.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid they're going to be sold. And you can't blame them for that. When you see the way salespeople, especially those that sell financial services, have been portrayed in the media.
And you know what annoys me more than anything? The untrained salesperson thinks that small talk is going to lower the guard.
Yeah.
They think by finding commonalities, like, are you a fisherman? Right? That's what I was taught.
I know.
When I worked at the brokerage firm, back in early 2000, I was taught to walk into people's home and find a picture of their family or is that you? Is that you holding that fish up there? Wow, you're a fisherman. And now I'm going to try to find commonality to hopefully lower your guard. That's exactly what I was taught to do. And it's so wrong.
Well, some people like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Depending on their personality style. Some people are more relationship oriented.
Yep.
They like small talk. It's okay, but only half the population's that way. Right. You will alienate the other half of the population. They're doing the eye roll, thinking, oh, God,
here we go. Because that would be me.
Yes.
You start making small talk with me as a salesperson, I'm rolling my eyes and I'm getting agitated.
So if we were to give a DISC personality profile of you, you would come back what it's called a high D.
Mm-hmm.
You're a dominant person. You're bottom line oriented. You want to get right down. You want to get to it. You don't have a lot of time to waste on chit chat.
Correct.
So you want to feel like you're in control of the
Mm-hmm.
sales process.
Mm-hmm.
And when I establish a time parameter up front, and when I ask you what you want to talk about, and I tell you that if I can't help, I'm going to be the first to let you know, you feel like you're in total control.
Yes.
And that's a buzzword.
Yes.
That's a important thing.
That's
to
right.
the dominant individual.
That's right.
Okay. Now, conscientious types, we talked about engineers in our last episode. They tend to be high C. They also don't care so much about having a relationship.
Correct.
They just want to get to what they want to talk about. They want to get the details. They thrive on details. And the minute you start making small talk with an engineer, you're stereotyping yourself as that old school, glad handing,
used car salesman.
talking. Yes.
Used car salesman.
They hate it.
And unfortunately, the reality is the majority of our industry was taught to be the used car salesman.
I know that.
And that's why, unfortunately, financial planners have not such a great reputation.
No, they're still teaching it today. Everything that I teach in my program is essentially the opposite. If I could take a young financial advisor, or young financial advisors, they don't typically have as many bad habits as the more experienced financial advisors.
Correct.
But if I could just suck everything that they were ever taught about sales and empty their brain of that, I'd have it'd be a lot easier to
We've
teach my
proven that at Secure Money Advisors, because we have, again, advisors that have no knowledge of the industry,
right,
no knowledge of any sales process,
right,
and they will outperform time and time again the guys that have been in the business for 20 years, who have even taken the Client Builder course, because to learn something new, what happens is when you get in a situation, when you're trying to retrain yourself, you go back to what's comfortable.
Right.
So they go, so all of a sudden they get themselves in a situation in a meeting, they don't know where to go the next step in Client Builder. And so they go back to the old habits.
Yeah. To be candid, Brian, when we are in a sales appointment, we are fighting this inner voice that's typically the voice of mom or dad, who are actually encouraging us to do everything wrong. You've got two young boys, and I'm sure it's happened, and I know that you have a lot of hobbies that you do with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And when Maddox learns how to do something new, whether it's riding his bike or whether it's some new trick, he can't wait to show you.
That's right.
And as a good dad, you see him do this new trick, you say, good job, buddy, way to go. Okay, that's his first little taste of recognition, right? That continues. He just started school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to go to school, and the teacher's going to pose a question to the class. He's going to raise his hand, give the right answer, and he's going to get a gold star that day.
Yes.
He's going to get a little round of applause. Good job, Maddox. You got it right. And that sticks with him, okay? And so when we're in a sales call and we start to ask a prospect what types of concerns or problems they have regarding retirement, here comes mom or dad's voice from the back of our brains saying, show them, sweetie. Show them how you can fix their problems. Show them how smart you are.
Right, yes.
And, this is the one time in life where you're allowed to tell mom to shut up, that she's not helping you by encouraging you to solve the problem. Not yet.
Yes.
We have to wait until we've built that fire, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you gave me in that advance agreement some good places to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So now what I want to do is I want to take those concerns and I want to turn them into pain.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, let's talk about that, because you've always said that people buy when they have pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's first define pain and what we're really looking for, because even though I gave you a number of things to be able to drill down on,
mm-hmm.
you might drill down and have a dry hole.
You might.
Right?
Yeah. Because
even though I agreed to it, we might come down the funnel and you go, there's not much there.
That's right. So we have to look for every potential problem that they bring us, okay? And then we're going to drill down on each of these to see whether the fire ignites, to
Yes.
see whether or not we get the bonfire. And so, and what's interesting is because, financial service professionals are always addressing couples. Um, you know, what's pain to one half of the
Yes.
partnership
Right.
isn't pain to the other half. And I'll just give you an example of this. Many, many years ago, this is, gosh, it's going back almost 20 years now. My sons were young, but they were coming into their teenage years, okay? And my wife decided that we needed a destination basement. Now, I had never heard this concept before. Apparently, a destination basement means that you have the nicest game room in the neighborhood that has the coolest toys, the best video console, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a the Disneyland of playrooms or basements,
Yeah.
so that's where the kids want to hang out.
Right.
Okay. Now,
this is why you become such a great mentor for me, because this is what I'm going through right now.
Yes, exactly. Now, and I'm saying,
Yeah.
why do you want our basement to be that basement? And
Yes.
her concern was that, other parents didn't necessarily share the same values.
Yep.
And we had heard stories that, there were some parties that were maybe getting a little rowdier than we wanted our kids to experience at their tender young age. We had heard that there were parents that would let kids drink in their house, that would let them watch movies. And so we were a little stricter than most parents. So she wants to have a destination basement. Now, I have to tell you something. That did not really appeal to me, because as a sales trainer who was frequently on the road, I had my hands full with two rambunctious young boys. The last thing I want to do is bring another 6 or 7 of their friends over to the house.
Right.
Because I'm looking for a little bit of solace, a little bit of solitude when I come off the road, right? So, but my wife wanted it. So we talked about a contractor, and we brought somebody in to give us a quote. What was fascinating is I'm just going through the motions. She explains to the contractor what she was looking for, and then she says, well, I'll leave you guys to it. I'm going upstairs. He looks at me, notices some plumbing that had been there from the previous owner of the house. And he says, I noticed there's plumbing, but it's capped off. What's that all about? Oh, they had a dog bath here. And so he took it with him. He says, did you ever think about maybe putting in a bar down here? And I thought to myself, well, that kind of defeats the purpose. We don't want to have a bar down here.
Right.
He said, not now. I'm talking about maybe 7, 8 years from now when your kids go off to college. All of a sudden, he has my attention.
Yeah.
I'm all of a sudden engaged, because we're no longer talking about a destination basement. We're talking about my future man cave.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And now I'm engaged. Now, my point here is that when we're uncovering pain, two sides are going to have a different focus.
Yes.
A different concern. And so I think in our next episode, we have to do a little role play as to how you bring those concerns from where they're nothing more than a problem to where they're what I call pain, a personal, compelling, emotional reason to change.
And that becomes the difficult dynamic for financial advisors, is because if you're a B2B salesperson, right, you're usually dealing with one decision maker, maybe a board too, right?
Yeah.
But with husband and wife, you have to make sure that you understand in that meeting too, who is going to be the final decision maker.
Yeah.
How much influence does the spouse have over the other spouse?
Yeah.
Right. Even though the spouse that's maybe controlling the money is the one that's in control, the other spouse may have a lot of influence.
But you have to reach consensus, because it's going to be a retirement plan for the both of them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so this is going to go more into the diagnosis step when we come back on the next episode, because we're going to talk about how to drill down on both of them to a certain degree. So, and guys, listen, if you haven't done it yet, get the book. It's all you got to do is start with getting the book. And for $25 a month, my gosh, $300 a year, you make an investment into the Client Builder University where all of this stuff lives and the role plays live that Larry and I did that has helped train my team of 3 advisors that have done $200 million year after year. I mean, think about that. And these are advisors that have never been in the industry.
Yeah.
All through this training. And that's how powerful it is. And I really want you to have it because I know how much it changed my life. And I truly want it to change your life because it will. And so we'll get back into it on the next episode.
Sounds good.